to all of you. Welcome to Team Novare. Today we will be discussing our midterm audit presentation. But before we dig deep, let me just introduce to you our team. We have here Gullies Altea Shane, your project manager, John Chris Kakulitan, your quality assurance, and Mikey Kapilitan as our lead programmer, and last but not the least, John Kit Villarta, our document analyst. So to begin with our presentation today, let us just present to you the IT Audit Control Plan form for the PUPTNovare Dental Management System. So we have here first the letter A, which includes the general information. For the organization office name, we have PUPTNovare Dental Clinic, department unit audited, which is PUPTNovare Dental Clinic also. Audit title is PUPTNovare Dental Management System. The audit period was taken last July 1 to July 3. It is also prepared on July 1, 2026, prepared by John Kit Villarta and reviewed by Altea Shane Gullies. So for our next part of this, we have the letter B, which is audit objectives. We have 3 objectives here. What are those? Number 1, to assess whether the dental management system has proper password and authentication controls to prevent unauthorized access to patient, dentist, and admin accounts. Number 2, to evaluate whether backup and recovery procedures are available and sufficient to prevent loss of data of dental records, uploaded files, and user information. And for the last objectives, we have here to determine whether personal data and collected and processed by dental is protected in accordance with data privacy and information security requirements. So we also have a checklist here, which includes the scope of audit and audit criteria reference standards. This includes the letter C and the letter B. So for the scope of audit, what are the area included in the audit? Number 1, user access management. Number 2, password and authentication controls. Number 3, data backup recovery. Number 4, network security. And number 5, data privacy and protection. Number 6, software updates and patching. Number 7, incident response procedures, physical security of IT assets. Number 8 is the IT policies and the documentations. The checklist here are all yes because they are all included during our audits. So on the right side, we can see here the audit criteria reference standards. We have here the standard policy framework for the table and then applicable and some of the remarks. So we have here the COVID 2019, which is no, and then ISO standards, which is yes because we all are using this format or this standard. NIST Cybersecurity Framework, no. Data Privacy Act of 2012, yes. And then internal IT policies. They also have that because it is also applicable for this audit. So let's go dig deep with the IT audit and control assessment. As you can see, we have here 6 tables or 6 rows rather. Pataas ko ng konti. Thank you. So we have here the audit area, risk identified, existing control test procedures, status, and finding and remarks. So finding and remarks, we can also see there the references. Later on, we will open those files para po makita po natin kung ano po ba yung mga tinetest natin. And this is also will help us for the evidence part. So let's go for the first audit area, which is user access management. For the user access management, this audit area checks if only authorized users can only access the system of PUPTNovare Dental Clinic system. The assessment found that rule-based access control is properly implemented. Each user, such as patients, dentists, and administrators can only access feature relevant to their responsibilities, preventing unauthorized access. So the status of this is effective. So for the references or for the evidences, kindly click it for the user list PUPDMS rules and yan. And then please share it to us. So ayan po siya and it's still naglo-load lang siya since medyo mabagal po yung internet. So we have here the user account roles and metrics. Ayan po. For the admin and then the dentist, nakaka-access lang po dito kung ano po yung mga roles na accessible for each user. So for our next part of this user management, we have here the roles and permission. Let's go back to the form. Ayan po. So ayan. Let's go back to the form. Kindly click the roles and permission. Dito po nagkakaroon din sila ng roles and permission for the admin of the dental clinic. So yan, dito po kakaroon na roles and permission for each users. So, okay. And that's the screenshot of it. Okay, for number 2 naman po, let's go back to the form. Ayan. So password and security, we can have here the risk identified, weak, shared or compromised passwords, existing control, password policy, and multi-factor authentication. And control test procedure is check password, settings, authentication requirements, and exceptions. The status of this is effective because this area or this audit area evaluates whether the user accounts are protected from unauthorized access. We also have references here or what we call the evidences. So let's click it, the MFA configuration records by the PUPT DMS. So ayan po siya. Ayan. So as you can see, we have MFA configuration records. As part of our capstone project, we are connected with the SSO or the identity or IDP rather, the identity provider. We have a single sign lang po sa pagsa-sign in ng email and password. So once na nag-sign in po sila, they can access every system na accessible po within the user. So let's go back to the form. We have here the references of user account setting PUPT DMS. So kindly click that one so that it will show our evidences. So for here, user account settings, meron tayong makikita dito for the admin. The settings only here are the dark mode and logouts. Same with the dentist and the patient. So that's it for the part of password and security. So for the number 3, we have here the data backup and recovery. So we have here the loss of important or sensitive data, scheduled backups and recovery procedures, review backup logs, storage locations, and restoration test results. So the status of this one is effective because the system uses Hostinger's automatic backup feature and recovery procedures are documented, allowing data to be resolved during system failures and accidental deletion. So for our references, we have here the backup schedules that we've found out doon po sa system ng in-audit po namin, which is this one. As I've said a while ago, the backup schedules are automatically scheduled by the hostinger or the hosting platform na ginagamit po ng PUPT DMS. So for another one of the evidence, let's go back to the form. We also have here the backup and restoration. So kindly click the backup and restoration so that you can see the evidence of this one. So ayan po. So from the hostinger itself lang din po siya, we have here the backups and the restoration. So may backup po doon sa plan na in-avail din nila sa hostinger. So that's it for number 3. And for the number 4 audit area, sige, let's go down. Ayan. So we have here the network security, malware inclusion or unauthorized network access for the risk identified, risk existing control for the firewall, antivirus, and network monitoring. And then for the control test plan procedure, inspect network configuration, security logs, and alert handling. So for the status, we have here the needs improvement because you can also find here for our finding and remarks, we mentioned here the network security controls are partially implemented but still required improvement. They also mentioned during their MAC 3 defense na nirecommend po ang regular review of hostinger logs, use of that HT access or IP restrictions for sensitive areas were needed, and continued use of a staging environment before live deployment. Additional verification and evidence po should be completed before making this area fully effective. So as for the references or the evidence, we can show it to you by clicking this link, the firewall and endpoint protection of PUPT DMS. So ito po yung mga firewall and endpoint protection reports po nila that is from the hostinger. So, ayun po. And then, for the next part of it, for the next part of this one is the software updates and patching. So, for the software updates and patching, we have here the vulnerabilities from outdated applications or systems, patch management process, and examine update schedules, patch records, and exceptions. The status of this is effective, because this verifies that software vulnerabilities are addressed through regular updates. So the system follows a patch management process where updates are tested in a staging environment before deployment to minimize risk and maintain system stability. So for our evidence that we've seen here is the patch management report from the PUPTDMS. So the patch management report also includes the Git kung paano sila kung paano nila pinupull and push all throughout their development for the system itself. So let's go back to the form. And for the next part of this one is the data privacy and protection. Sige, let's go down. Ayan. So we have here the unauthorized disclosure or misissue of personal data, data access restriction and encryption, review data classification, access permissions, and protection measures. And the status of this one is effective. Why effective? Because the system limits access based on user roles, secures data transmission, and maintains audit logs to prevent unauthorized disclosure or misissue of personal information. So we also have here the references, which are number one, data access logs. Ayan. So meron tayo niyan. Ayan. So dito po natin nakikita sa system logs nila or sa super admin account, yung audit log, sino po yung mga nakapag-login, sino po yung mga gumamit ng system, kung ano pong roles yon. Nandyan po lahat ng system logs. Hindi lang kung sino gumamit, ano yung ginawa nila sa system, nag-book ba sila for their appointment, nag-request ba sila for some reason na connected po sa dental. So, ayun po. And then for our next part of the evidence, we also have here, wait lang po, let's go back here muna. Ayan, so ayun. We also have here the encryption configuration PUPT-DMS. Ayan, so kindly click that one. Ayan, pinakita rin po nila sa amin itong encryption and configuration po nila. Ayan, so for our next evidence po, let's go back to the form. Ayan, so meron din po ditong password policy yung PUPT-DMS. So pa-click po niyan. Ayan, so dyan po, ang password policy po nila is provided by the PUPT IDP MFA. So, lahat po ng system within our campus is ganito po yung ginagawa nila for the password policy because they are the ones who are handling the systems inside the campus. So, ayun. So, let's go back to the form because we also have here the IT policies and procedures. They provide this for us to check or to run through all throughout their system. Dito po natin makikita kung ano po yung mga policies and procedures po ng kanilang system para rin ma-verify natin kung talagang nga bang sinusunod po nila yung mga objectives ng ating audit. So, ayan. So, we will just run through about this one and then we can now go back to the form. Let's go back to the form. Ayan. So for our next part po is the incident response. So let's go back. Let's go dig down. So for here, we have the risk identified of the delayed or inconsistent response to IT incidents. Existing control is incident response plan and reporting process, control test procedure for the review incident reports, response timeline, and post-incident actions. So for the status, it is effective because the assessment confirmed that procedures are in place for reporting, investigating, resolving, and documenting incidents such as unauthorized access, system errors, backup failures, and data privacy concerns. So for our evidence, we have here the incident response. Ayan, so just click it. Ayan po yung mga audit log po ng ating admin. Nandyan po siya. Pwede po natin makita kung ano po yung mga incident na nangyari po during our testing sa system po na ito. Also, they also include or give us the documentation po nila para sa incident response, which are this one. Ayan. So, galing po yon sa PUPT Dental System Information Security Management or the ISMS document. We can go up para makita yung ISMS. Ayan. Ito. That one. Okay. So, ayan po siya. So, for our next part naman po, sa last thing that we did for audit area is the physical security of IT assets. And there is identified here the theft, damage, or unauthorized physical access, existing control, lock rooms, visitor control, and asset inventory, control tests, or inspect server areas, access logs, and asset records. The status of this is effective because IT assets, including computers and the drawing tablet used for digital signatures, are properly managed and secured through documented procedures. Ayan po. So sa we also have here the finding and the remarks of this one. The drawing tablet is only used for for the authorized clinic transactions and should be stored securely after use. So for the reference here, ang nakita lang po namin for now during our audit is the software inventory, which is includes the code of composer.json po. So, sige, let's go back to the form. To conclude this for the IT audit and control assessment, the IT audit shows that 7 out of 8 audit areas are effective, indicating that the system has strong security and control measure in place. The only area requiring improvement is the network security, where additional monitoring and enhanced access controls are recommended to further strengthen the system's overall security. So that would be all for the IT audit and control assessment. For the audit finding and recommendation, may I call on Ms. Mikey Capilitan to discuss it to all of you. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Ms. Gullias. Now let's quickly go to the part F for the audit findings and recommendations. So finding number one is network security logs. The problem is network hosting or security logs not reviewed regularly. So yung risk level is high. Why it matters? Because if it can't detect attacks or suspicious activity, the fix is review logs weekly, keep screenshots as evidence. So the responsible person is the system administrator. And when or the target completion date is the July 31, 2026. So finding number two is the access restriction. The problem is the sensitive system areas lack proper restriction. So risk level is medium. Why it matters? Because anyone could access sensitive files or directories. So the fix is to configure that HT access restrictions for sensitive routes. So responsible person is the system administrator again, and the target completion date is the July 31, 2026. So finding number three is the hosting security evidence. The problem is security controls exist, but no documentation. Risk level is medium. Why it matters is it can prove controls are working without evidence. So the fix is take screenshots of SSL, WAF, and malware scanning backups. So the responsible person is the system administrator or the developer. Target completion date is the July 31, 2026 again. So finding number four is the staging environment testing. The problem is it changes might be pushed without proper testing. So risk level is medium. Why it matters? Because it untested changes could break the system. So the fix is to continue testing on staging, document results before deployment. So the responsible person is the system administrator or the developers. Target completion date is July 31, 2026. So that's it for part F. Next is Mr. Kakulitan.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kapilitan. I will be discussing the Part G of our IT Audit and Control Plan, which is the Corrective Action Plan. The purpose of the Corrective Action Plan is to ensure that the findings identified during the audit are addressed through specific actions, assign responsibilities, required resources, and target completion dates. This helps ensure that the identified weaknesses are resolved and that the system security continues to improve. In our audit, we identified 4 corrective actions, all related to network security, since this was the only audit area assessed as needs improvements. So the first corrective action plan is to regularly review hostinger security logs. This enables the system administrator to detect suspicious activities, field login attempts, unusual traffic, and other potential security threats before they become serious incidents. So this activity is currently ongoing and is targeted for completion by July 31, 2026. The second corrective action plan is to configure .ht access or hosting level IP and access restrictions for sensitive system directories and routes. By limiting access to authorized users only, we can better protect confidential system resources from unauthorized access. This activity is also ongoing. And the third corrective action plan is to verify and document all hosting level security controls, including SSL or the TLS encryption, malware scanning, web application firewall or the WAF, DDoS protection, and secure hosting configuration. So this action has already been completed, meaning the required security features have been verified and documented with the supporting evidence. Lastly, we recommend continuing to use the staging environment when testing updates, security patches, and configuration changes before deploying them to the live system. So this minimizes the risk of introducing bugs, vulnerabilities, or service interruptions into the production environment. So this activity remains ongoing. Overall, these corrective actions focus on strengthening the network security of the dental management system through better monitoring, stronger access controls, proper documentation of security configurations, and safer deployment practices. And that concludes my discussion for the corrective action plan. Let me call on Mr. John Kit Villarta to discuss the audit conclusion and such.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kakulitan. Moving on to the final parts of our audit, I will now walk you through the audit conclusion and summary of our supporting document. As detailed in the form, the overall assessment for the PUPTNovare dental management system is satisfactory with minor improvements needed. To elaborate, our audit found that the system has effective controls in place across the majority of the areas we assess. Specifically, we verified that controls for user access management, password and authentication, data backup and recovery, software updates and patching data, privacy and protection, incident response, and physical security are all functioning properly. These are backed by role-based mechanism including role-based access control, one login, IDP for authentication, hostingers automatic backup capabilities, and well-documented policies, procedures, and asset handling protocols. The primary area identified for improvement is within network security. While we have a positive overall assessment, we've noted that the actions are needed to strengthen the monitoring of our hosting environment. This includes establishing a regular review process for hostinger security logs, implementing .ht access or IP restrictions where necessary, are truly documented security controls like SSL, TLS, WAF, and malware scanning. This staging environment testing process should also be continued and formally documented. In conclusion, while the network security tasks are important, they are minor and manageable improvements. They don't undermine the fundamental security of the system, which is why we've rated at satisfactory. These actions are part of our continuous efforts to harden the system and maintain audit readiness. Now, let's proceed to the supporting documents. For the supporting documents, let's briefly review the supporting document listed in section I. As Thea mentioned earlier in the discussion, she has already provided a detailed walkthrough of these files. However, to confirm our audit trail, I want to highlight that we have compiled evidence for all the areas assessed. For the evidence package includes IT policies and procedures, user access lists and review records, password and authentication configuration details, which are managed by the Identify, Provider, and One Portal system. Backup logs and restoration test results, security logs, which are managed by the hosting service hostinger, software patch and update records, incident reports and response documentation, and finally, the asset inventory and physical security records. Again, all these supporting documents are available for your review and reference in detail in the full report. And that would be all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jankit Villarta, for concluding our IT audit and control plan form. So for our next presentation, let's go on with the PUPTNovare Dental Management System Risk Assessment Form. So kindly share that screen po so that we could proceed. So yan. Thank you so much, Mr. John Chris Kakulitan. So today, let's go on with the PUPTNovare Dental Management System Risk Assessment Form. So we have here the letter A, which includes the assessment information. For the assessment information, first we have the organization office, which is PUPTNovare Dental Clinic, same with the department unit. And for the system application name, the system application name is PUPTNovare Dental Management System. And the system owner is Team Espasol. Assessment period from July 8 to July 10, 2026. Assessment date is July 8. And then assessed by John Kit Villarta. It was reviewed by Althea Shane Gulles. So for our letter B here, for our risk rating criteria, we have scoring, level, likelihood guide, impact guide, and risk rating. For our score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, level for rare, unlikely, possible, likely, and almost certain. Each of this score and level has their own likelihood and impact guide and risk rating. For rare, we have highly unlikely may occur only in exceptional circumstances. Impact guide, which is minimal disruption, little or no data, financial, legal, or reputational effect. Risk rating is 1 to 4, which is this is low. Could occur but not expected during normal operations. Minor operational delay or limited impact on a small group of user. includes the level of unlikely. Rating would be 5 to 9 moderate. And then possible would may occur at some time because of known weakness or changing conditions. Noticeable disruption rather may affect service delivery data quality or compliance. 10 to 14, which is high, likely for expected to occur in many circumstances or without additional controls. Major disruption, the sensitive data, essential services, or many users may be affected. 15 to 19, very high, almost certain, expected to occur repeatedly or imminently. Severe catastrophic effects, significant legal, financial, privacy, or reputational damage, which is 20 to 25 critical. For our risk treatment options, we have here the avoid, mitigate, reduce, transfer, share, and accept, stop or redesign the activity that creates the risk. For avoid, mitigate to reduce or implement or strengthen controls to lower likelihood and or impact, transfer, share the risk with a third-party vendor, insurer, or service provider, and accept for retain the risk when it is within the organization's approved risk tolerance. So let's go on with the information system risk register. We have here the number, which is the number of risk area, then the column for risk area, column for risk description cost, column for affected asset process, existing controls, inherit L, inherit I, and then inherit score. L means likelihood, I means the impact. Rating is the rating that we've discussed earlier, and then residual L and the residual I, and residual score and the rating of this one. So this system risk register identifies the major risks that may affect the dental management system. Each risk is evaluated using inherent risk and which measures the risk before controls and applied, and residual risk, which measures the remaining risk after the existing controls are implemented. So for number one here, we have the user access management and account permission. The risk of this area or the focus of this risk area is on controlling who can access the system and what actions they are allowed to perform. So for the inherent risk or the inherent score, it is 20 and critical because it is unauthorized users could access, modify, or delete sensitive data or patient records if no controls exist. And then for number two, the password and authentication controls, this ensures that only legitimate user can only log in securely using strong authentication methods. The inherent score of this is 16, which is very high because weak passwords or compromised accounts can easily lead to unauthorized access. And the residual risk is moderate, which is 8, since the password policy, account lockout, and session timeout significantly reduce this risk. So for number 3, we have here the data backup and recovery procedures. This area naman po ensures that important patient records and system data can be restored after accidental loss or system failure. For the inherent score, we have here 15, which is very high because losing patient records would greatly affect clinic operations. And residual risk is 10, which is high because regular backups reduce the likelihood of permanent data loss, but recovery can still impact operations. So for our number 4, for the network and system security, this protects the system from cyber threats such as malware, hacking, and unauthorized network access. This is high for the inherent score because cyber attacks can compromise system security and availability. And then for the residual risk, which is moderate due to firewalls, HTTPS, antivirus software, and continuous monitoring. So for number 5, we have here the data privacy and protection. This safeguards confidential patient information from unauthorized disclosure or misissue. So the inherent risk of this one or the inherent score of this one is 15, which is very high since the patient data is highly sensitive and protected by data privacy regulations. And then the residual risk is high since it is the encryption and access restrictions and audit logs reduce the likelihood of data exposure, although the impact remains significant. So for number 6, we have here, let's scroll a little bit. Ayan, thank you po. So software licensing and update management. This area naman po ensures that the system software is updated, secure, and free from known vulnerabilities. So for inherent score, we have here 12. Since outdated software may contain exploitable security flaws, and then For the residual naman po is a moderate, which is 6, since updates are tested before deployment and critical patches are applied promptly. And then for number 7, we have here the incident reporting and response procedure. This area naman po ensures that security incidents are detected, reported, and resolved efficiently. So for the inherent score, it is 12 since delayed incidents handling can increase system damage and recovery time. And residual risk is moderate, which is 6, because incident reporting procedures and escalations process improve response effectiveness. So for our second to the last, which is 8, is physical security of IT equipment. This protects computers, storage devices, and other IT equipment from theft, damage, or unauthorized physical access. So inherent score is moderate since the physical access can compromise patient information or disrupt operation. So for residual risk is low since, or number 4, is because access restrictions, storage controls, and workstations security effectively minimize this risk. So for our last part of this one is IT policies, documentations, and compliance. This area naman po ensures that the policy procedures and documentations are complete, updated, and consistently followed. So the inherent score is moderate since it is incomplete documentation may result in inconsistent implementation of security controls. Then the residual risk naman po is moderate or 6, equivalent of 6, because existing policies reduce the risk but regular reviews and updates are still necessary. So that would be all for the part of information system risk register. To conclude, this assessment shows that the implemented controls effectively reduce the likelihood of security risk across the system. So for our next part, for risk treatment and action plan, may I call on Ms. Mikey Kapilitan to discuss it further. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Ms. Ataya Gulya. So now let me discuss the part E of the risk assessment form or the risk treatment and action plan. Part E lists required actions for risk above the acceptable level. So risk number 1 is the user access management. The problem is unauthorized viewing, editing, or deletion of patient records. Recommended actions are the perform quality user access review, disable inactive accounts, validate role permission matrix, prohibit shared accounts, document access approvals, and removals. So the control owner is the system owner or the IT administrator. The resources needed are the user list, role matrix, review form, and approval log. The target date is the August 30, 2026, and the status is still ongoing. And evidence is the access review report, the activation list, signed approval. So for the risk number 2 is the password and authentication. The problem is the accounts compromised due to weak passwords or phishing. Recommended action is the enforce strong password rules and lockout, require MFA for privileged admin accounts, review failed login logs, conduct phishing and password awareness reminders. So the control owner is the IT administrator or the authorized users. Resources needed is the authentication settings, MFA tool, awareness material. So for the target date is August 30, 2026. So status is open and evidence is password policy, screenshot, MFA proof, log review. For the risk number 3, the backup and recovery. The problem is the dental records may be unrecoverable after deletion or system failure. Recommended action is the document backup schedule, maintain separate protected backup copies, monitor failed jobs, perform restore tests before major clinic cycles, record recovery time, and result. So the control owner is the IT administrator or the system owner. Resources needed is the backup storage, test environment, restoration checklist. So the target date is September 15, 2026. And the status is still ongoing. And evidence is the backup logs, restore test report, backup inventory. So the risk number 4 is the networks and system security. The problem is system exposed to malware, unauthorized access, or attacks. Recommended action is the review server hardening, update firewall and antivirus checks, verify HTTPS configuration, monitor suspicious activity, document remediation of vulnerabilities. So the control owner is the IT administrator or the hosting support. Resources needed is the security checklist, monitoring logs, and SSL report. So the target date is September 30, 2026, and the status is still open, and evidence is a firewall or the AV report, SSL check, and remediation record. So risk number 5 is the data privacy and protection. The problem is the confidential patient information may be disclosed. So recommended action is the confirm privacy notice, retention schedule, secure report sharing process, least privilege access, log review, procedure for suspected data exposure. So for the control owner is the system owner or the IT, data privacy focal or IT. So the resources needed is the privacy notice, retention matrix, access log. So the target date is still September 15, 2026, and status is still open. Evidence is the privacy notice, log review, retention and sharing of SOP. Risk number 6 is the software updates and licensing. The problem is the outdated libraries or unpatched software create vulnerabilities. So recommended action is to maintain inventory of frameworks, libraries, and server packages and tools. Patch software or supported documents or components. Replace unsupported software. Keep deployment and license records. So the control owner are the IT administrator, developer, asset custodian. So the resources needed is the asset inventory, version report, and the staging environment. The target date is September 30, 2026. The status is still open or ongoing. Evidence is patch log, inventory, release notes, license record. So for risk number 7, incident response, the problem is the security incidents reported late or handled inconsistently. So recommended action are the approved incident response workflow, define severity levels and reporting channels, keep incident register, complete post-incident review and lessons learned. So the control owner is the system owner, IT support, and the clinic staff. So the resources needed is the incident template, escalation list, ticket register. The target date is October 15, 2026, and the status is still open. And the evidence is the incident log, escalation list, post-incident report. So that's it for the part E. Next is Mr. Kakulitan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kapilitan. I will now proceed to the part F of our risk assessment, which is the risk acceptance and escalation section. So this section explains which risks can already be accepted after implementing existing controls and which risks still require management attention. Based on our assessment, the organization has accepted the low and moderate residual risk, specifically risk 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9. These risks are considered manageable because the existing controls have already reduced their likelihood and impact to an acceptable level. However, these risks will continue to be monitored through periodic reviews to ensure they remain under control. Despite this risk escalation, it's still required because three residual risks remain at a high level. So these are user access management, data backup and recovery, and data privacy and protection. So these risks are required to additional monitoring by management until all recommended mitigation activities have been completed and supporting evidence has been verified. So the assigned risk owner is the dental clinic head or the designated system owner together with the IT administrator. They are responsible for monitoring this risk and ensuring that the necessary controls are fully implemented. In addition, another risk review is scheduled within 6 months or immediately after any major system change or security incident. In summary, the assessment shows that while many risks have already been reduced through existing controls, continuous monitoring and management oversight remain necessary for the remaining high-risk areas. So this approach supports continuous improvement and helps maintain the security, reliable, and compliance of the dental management system. And that concludes my presentation. Let me call on Mr. John Kit Villarta to discuss the next part.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kakulitan. For the summary of risk assessment naman, the summary of the risk assessment for the PUP Taguig Dental Management System conducted from the July 8 to 10, 2026 provides a clear overview of the system security posture. Before considering any controls, the assessment identified 2 moderate inherent risks, 3 high inherent risks, and 4 very high or critical inherent risks, with the most significant issues concentrated in access control, authentication, backup procedures, and patient data privacy. After applying existing controls, the residual risk profile improved significantly, leaving 1 low, 5 moderate, and 3 high residual risks, and eliminating all very high and critical risks. A total of 7 risks were flagged for treatment because they exceeded the organization preferred tolerance or required formal documentation. This included 2 moderate, 3 high, and 2 very high inherent risks. The organization accepted 1 low and 5 moderate residual risks, which will be subject to continued monitoring and periodic review. Finally, 3 high residual risks were escalated to management, requiring formal review, target data tracking, and documented evidence of mitigation. For the last part, the following supporting documents and evidence were used to complete this risk assessment and should be referenced as attached. The completed risk register from Section D, which includes the inherent and residual scores for all identified risks, is included as part of this report. A detailed risk treatment plan is currently in progress to manage the 7 risks requiring action, evidence demonstrating the implementing of existing control, such as the screenshots of access restrictions, backup logs, and security policies, is to be compiled. A standardized incidents reporting template has been drafted for use in tracking security and system events. The system architecture diagram, which eventually maps the system components, data flows, and network connections, is pending an update. Lastly, the user access matrix listing all the system users and their assigned roles and permission is scheduled for review to ensure compliance with the principle of least privilege. And that would be all.
Thank you so much for concluding our IT risk assessment form for PUPTDMS John Kit Villarta. So that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you so much for your time and for listening to our discussion for midterm audit presentation. That would be all. Thank you so much.